Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another cracking edition of the Threshold podcast. And with me in the hot seats, as usual, are my co-hosts, Rich Mulholland and Brent Spilly Spilken. Hello, boys. Welcome back.
Hey, Maddie.
Good morning, Matt.
What's going on, guys? How's the last couple of weeks been for you?
You go first, Rich. What's top of mind?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been the calm before the storm for me. Everything is about to get crazy. It's such a weird thing. I don't know if you ever find this, that like we're basically unable to be happy. If we're quiet, we wish we were busy. And if we're busy, we wish we were quiet. Now I'm about to go Jersey, Isle of Man, South Africa, Isle of Man, South Africa, Isle of Man, South Africa, Isle of Man, Hawaii, Isle of Man, literally week to week to week to week. And yet here I am sitting here almost upset that I'm not doing more of it. Most of the talks I've done so far this year have been online, things like that. And yet I know this time in 2 weeks, I'll be wishing for this again. And it's such a thing about the human condition that wherever we are, we wish we were there. I don't know if you guys ever find that.
Completely.
Yeah,
Completely.
It happens to me all the time.
It's a thing where, I mean, what am I on the threshold of? I hope my clients aren't listening, but I'm on the threshold of firing a bunch of clients
Again?
and it's mostly because I feel like I've reached a point where partly I've pushed my capacity beyond where I want it to be. I mean, I'm managing, but it's like maybe a little bit too much pressure, like not enough time. And then there's this weird, and maybe you guys can talk me off the cliff here, but I have this weird problem where I have clients that have been with me for 10, 11 years. They are loyal, right? There's a loyalty there where I'm like, I feel bad for firing those clients because they've been so good for me. And maybe it is time for them to find another coach. Maybe it's actually a problem that they've been with me this long. The positive is that I'm obviously still adding value and trying to be ahead of their curve. So that's maybe a good pat on the shoulder. But these guys are paying me less than 50% of my newer clients. And because I'm at a point where I'm going, I can't do more. For my business, the right thing to do is find those few clients and either jack their pricing up and get them to pay, which I think they won't because the base is too low, or slowly migrate them off. So I'm at the threshold going, I'm trying to figure out how to have this conversation without being a dick because, but Spilly, we were there from day one. We've been supporting your business forever. And I'm like, I get that, but I've got to outgrow you. And there's part of it is like, I'm taking my strategy seriously, like get my buck for my hour. You know what I mean? So I'm on the threshold of having some potentially weird, difficult conversations. I don't know how it's going to go. And the concern is always that reputationally, I don't want to be known as, oh, he's too expensive, or now, we're not good enough for him, or I worry about the implication of that. So I feel like I'm on the threshold of making the decision and chat GPTing. How should I position this? What should I be saying? What's the best way of solving this? So that's kind of where I am. But it's going back to Richard's thing. It's like, I want more business. I want to be busy. I want more. And then I'm like, no, I don't want so much. I want some time. And it's this constant ebb and flow of that, almost regardless of the revenue. The time thing for me is I want to be busy, but not that busy. And figuring out the perfect middle, happy ground, unachievable for me.
So I think we mentioned it last time as well. Howard Mann talks about fewer better. And I love the phrasing, fewer better everything. Fewer better friends, fewer better clients, fewer better blog posts, fewer better everything. And I think there's a bit of that happening there. But the way that I would be framing this with my customers is very, very simple. Is how, the heavy chef sessions, never trust a skinny chef, right? Is if you turn around and went to your clients and said to them, it's very, very important that you never trust a skinny chef. You want to make sure that you're with somebody that's practicing what they preach. Now, I can tell you, if you came to me as your business coach and you said that you had a business model in which certain legacy clients, your business is outgrown, and you are selling your time to money or your product, whatever it is, but they are buying it at 50% of the price of everybody else, and that is unsustainable for your business and your business model going forward. If I didn't tell you, what do you think I would have to tell you to do in order for me to be a good coach? And then they'll say, well, you have to get rid of those clients. You can't keep them forever, right? Say, absolutely. And I would tell you this but I'm not doing it as a business. Now, I'd love to continue working with you. And I believe I add more than X amount of value with you every single month. But it's very, very important that while I'm loyal to you and I will always give you first right of refusal of this time slot, it is yours. I also need that to be valued equally, and I need this to be at the same price that I'm setting my time for elsewhere. Now, because of our relationship and our love, I want to give it to you at a 10% premium. So I do want to reduce the price 10% by what I charge everybody. In fact, 10% off my 2024 price, but that still puts you up another 40%. So let me explain to you how this looks to you as a business. And I present it that way. And the bottom line is there is no way that this is not good advice, because you would never advise any of your customers
Completely.
ever to stay in the position you are. So you've got to be the heavy chef coach. You've got to be the one that turns around and says, listen, I have to make this tough decision because you have to trust the advice I'm giving you. And how can you trust me if I'm not doing the smartest thing for my business?
Yep, take him
Now, I'll give you 3 months to decide on this thing, and you can choose to do it. And maybe over the next 3 months, we can have an ROI. But right now, this is where it's happening. The slot is yours, but it will be at a discounted mates rate or a grandfather rate going forward, which will be 90% of my current client's cost. And if they don't like it, there's no argument. Can you understand and then I would ask them, can you understand the logic of my position? And they can only say yes or no. And if they say yes,
I think they're going to understand the logic, and one or two might bite at the higher price, and the rest will be, thanks, Spilly, it's been real. And then I'm going to move on from that, right? But it's interesting because I've never wholesale fired a bunch of clients. And by firing,
you're not firing a client.
I think I'm firing clients.
So I think I think when you put your price up, I think maybe the mistake you've made is by not. I would turn around and tell every single client, your insurance company tells you there's an escalation on your billing price. So the mistake that's been made here is that you've kept your clients at the pricing that they've had for years. And
no, they've been escalating, but not as quickly as the new clients have been charged for. So every year they get a 10%, but new clients get a 20, 30, 40% increase. And so they've just been slowly lagging behind. They've been getting increases, but nowhere at the pace that I've been selling at.
Brent, I would take all my existing clients, if I was you in this situation, and I would bill them by tiers. I will keep them if they pay me the same as everybody else. I'll keep them if they pay me 10 to 15% less than everybody else. And I would keep them even if I don't want to move them much by price, just because they're an amazing customer that's doing amazing stuff and I love working with them. Yeah. Right? They fill my tank. And I would divide everybody into that, and then I would just have that conversation with each and every customer. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm on the threshold of making the decision just to sell my business, to be honest. And it's not for reasons that are, too dissimilar to the ones that Spilly you have. It's like fewer better, and I'm just finding that I'm basically just fucking over it. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I've been doing it for so long, and I'm just like, remember, I think, in fact, in the last episode, my wife chewed me out over dinner and I lost it. I was telling you guys that story. And in hindsight, I actually feel like my wife's right most of the time, if not all the time. And so, I just looked at, the business and where it's going, and all the headcount that we've added, and what my day, is like now, and I'm dealing with incompetent people, and I don't suffer fools very well. I'm dealing with clients that, quite frankly, is kind of like you, Brent. Like, they're not paying us enough in order to really, get the sort of full solution or suite of services that we're offering them. And I'm not saying that business is bad. It's just that I'm not in love with it anymore. I'm not in love with, the portfolio of clients. Like, I take shit all day, every day. And that's fine. And that's to be expected. That's, the price you have to pay to build a successful business. But I'm looking at, all the things that are going on in my business and in my day. And I don't love it, man. I'm like, fuck this. It's not actually worth it. Let me just take the money and do something where there's way more leverage. Cause at the moment, this is what I was explaining to my sister yesterday. Like, if I put 10 units of effort in, I get 10 units of effort back. You see what I mean? And then I've got some clients where if I put 10 units of effort in, I stand to gain 100x back. You see? And to your point, Brent, it's like the time that you spend working on client services where you're not getting the kind of value that you know that you can get or that you are getting from other opportunities or other clients. It just, it messes with your head, quite frankly, and so that's kind of where I'm at as well. It's kind
But
of like,
but Matt, is selling the business, I mean, in the same vein that I'm going, which, better, fewer, is that not also, as opposed to, hey, let's just dump the whole business, hopefully for the right amount of money, but as opposed to dumping it, is there not there are the 80-20 rule. There's 20% of clients that are amazing to work with, giving me the best return. Let's fire the bottom 20%. Let's go find one or two better clients and systematically just churn the bottom and make your life better, keep the business. I mean, obviously that's an option. Have you explored that?
I have, but they're different businesses fundamentally. So it's weird because we've got some clients that are paying us for X, and then we have some clients that are paying us for Y. And the Y clients are the ones where there's leverage, but I can't take the technology for X and shove it into Y, or move the team from X into Y. That's,
Yeah, but you could
I mean?
sell one part, right? And you could keep the other part.
Yeah,
It'd be
exactly.
trickier because the profit margins are from the part you want to keep.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's not like I would be uncertain about what my next move would be. Like, I already know what that is. It would just be a case of, well, this, the X part of the business is sucking up all my time. And yeah, so that's kind of the threshold I'm at.
it's a funny thing, guys. And one day I'd love to write something on the difference between a business and a company, because Brent has coached me so many times throughout the years, and we've been friends for a long time. And in fact, we shared a coach for years. So he's been with me in this journey for a long haul. And you could make a lot of arguments at a lot of different points in Missing Link's history that it's not a good business, but it's always been a good company in that it's a cool place. Like, it brings me joy. I love the people I work with. Like, I genuinely do. My Monday huddle with my team is one of the highlights of my week. In fact, my biggest frustration is that I don't get to be in person with them, spending more time with them. I love the company. I love what we stand for. I love the energy. And occasionally the business is not great. And I think that sometimes it's worth us thinking about, one of these things has to be up. So if you can have a great business with not really a great company culture, but that would be cool because you're in the right place. And you can have a really great company that you love being part of and it doesn't make you a ton of money, but it ticks over as a lifestyle business. That's okay too. I think if both of those are flat, it's a problem. And I believe that most people spend a whole bunch of time focusing on the business and not enough time focusing on the company. I do think, by the way, the converse is true. I definitely overcooked the company. So I spent more energy building an amazing company. Like that was first for me. That was everything. And then the business itself took a back seat because that bored me. And, my retirement will be harder because I didn't do that. But my life has been better because I did, if that makes any sense. So I don't know if there's any thoughts to that like it's a harder decision to make if you really love the company. But if you're not loving the company or the business, that's a tricky place to be.
And the big trap in my previous life was that I had a great business for many, many years. It was a completely shit company, completely shit. Like everything you don't want in a company we had, but it pumped out cash. So
like
you get trapped in that as well.
Gun shootings, like it was nice.
No, we had people dying, having babies in the bathrooms and finding fetuses in the toilets and like millions of robberies. Don't laugh. It's true. Like it was the
How
worst
company. Did you have, Brent, at your peak?
Probably
80?
somewhere. No, way more. No.
Huh?
We had over 300 on the main facility
at
its peak. No, it was a proper headache. So, and then obviously, people all over the place and agents and all the other stuff. But the point being is, you get stuck as well because you get sucked into it's a good business. It like the foundation of that business is good. It produces the right margins. It runs on its own, like in terms of quite automated, but it was a really shitty company. And I'm curious to know is that how many people do you know that have managed to get both at a high level? So it's an amazing culture. It's a great company to work for. Everything's amazing and it pumps out money. Like I don't see many of those. Hey? I don't see many of those.
Percentage. But here's the thing: is I think that I don't know. Matt 10 years ago for me would have chosen business over company, right? He had something to prove. He wanted to show the world. Matt has nothing to prove now. He's done amazing things. And I'm guessing if I told Matt, you could have a business that you love going to that takes a simple amount of time work. It pays you kind of double your salary that you would want, enough to do meaningful investments,
Yeah.
plus your salary. Plus, you get to work with only people you like, and you get to go riding your motorcycle almost whenever you want. I'm guessing that Matt is coming to the point now where he would trade for that. I could be wrong, but Matt, like thoughts?
No, I think you're 100% correct. I mean, you guys know me now for a long time. So, and I think it is right. I mean, I guess, I started this company because I had to. If you guys remember the story when I arrived in the States, it was just, had nothing, just had to basically, rebuild everything and whatever. And, now we've kind of done that. And I'm just looking at, to your point, Rich, like, my mental health, quite frankly. like that is a huge consideration for me. I'm not saying like I want to slit my wrists or whatever, but I do know what it feels like to have a great company and a great business. Like that's what we had. And
Really, digital kung fu, that's what you had.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
That
And
like,
and so I know what that feels like, and I don't feel like that's what we have now. And then I think about the time suck it's going to take to get there, and the pain that it's going to take to get there. And I'm just looking at, to your point, what does a great balance look like for me? Because at the moment I'm working 7 days a week. I'm up at 5 most days. And I'm looking at like, is this sustainable?
a business partner would help.
Yeah.
Definitely, because it's nice to go to war with somebody, but also professional management. But I know that comes with its own headaches.
Yeah, and it's just and I guess maybe I'm just tired. I'm just like my mindset's not where it should be. So I'm not saying like I should horse trade my future for a knee-jerk decision right now, but it is something that I'm seriously thinking through because I'm also thinking about my life stage, to be honest. I'm turning 46, the big 50's coming around, or the new 50 or the new 40. I don't know. But yeah, and I just I'm looking also at opportunities and thinking to myself, well, if I took a sledgehammer to this current train that I'm on, what would that allow me to unlock? To your point, Rich.
Rich, I quite like the double the salary half the time as a thing you could sell to people, because I do think that's exactly what people want. They just want to go, if I could earn twice as much and not make tons of profit over and above my salary. If I could take out twice my salary every month and work half the hours, golden. I think that'd be true for most people.
So I think what happens with most people is we buy a business, and first of all, because we're sold the success metric, the victory condition of a business is growth. This is terrible. That means it puts you on a treadmill. The second thing is most people overcorrect for more than enough. And for me, more than enough is, the basic enough. In fact, more than enough is not. More than enough. I used to think enough was being able to pay for an amazing lifestyle. It's absolutely not true. Enough is being able to pay for an amazing lifestyle and invest enough that the future version of you will also be able to achieve an amazing lifestyle. So there's got to be that investment portion in your enough. But beyond that, everything you choose to do should only be measured in the joy it brings you. Because once you've gone, if you've taken, this is what I need to have a good life, this is what I need to sustain, to invest, to sustain that good life, anything you're doing beyond that is essentially fun and it must bring enjoyment. And if you get to the point where it's not bringing you enjoyment, you've got to dial back to the point that it was. Now, I understand that some people's self-worth is completely defined by how big a business they can build. I've never understood it. I always think that, I think I've spoken to you guys about the Olympics of being rich. Have I told you about that?
Yeah, we spoke about it a couple of months ago.
Yeah, and none of us are ever going to win gold medals. In the Olympic Games of being rich, even in our suburbs, we're not going to win gold medals. So why are we competing so aggressively, killing ourselves training for a sport that we won't even make the local high school team in? Why not try and do better in another sport, in a sport in which we can? And I really, I obsess over this idea. Like, what do I want to be the Olympiad at?
Matt's half asleep still. He can't answer that. I am.
Do you know it's
Rich,
minus 17?
Holy shit.
the principle of that, Rich, makes complete sense. Putting that into practical practice is something I absolutely struggle with.
What do you mean?
Well, it's going, okay, how much do I need to live? X value. How much should I be saving for my future self? X value. Everything above that should give me joy, right? And I get the fact that, but putting that into practice to go, I will only pick up projects or clients that I'm going to really love, or I'm not going to do more work. I'm going to go ride my bike or run. I find that doing that is so difficult, especially if someone puts more money in front of me. Like I get to the point, go, okay, I've covered the base, I've covered the future. Oh, but spend more. We'll spend money if you do something here. And I go like, okay, why not? I just go, yes, give it to me, give it to me.
There's a pain threshold here, right? That's all it's about. So if I didn't have enough money to feed my family and to eat, I would pick up fucking rocks all day long, right? I would do whatever it took. I would put myself in physical, emotional pain to make sure that I had enough. Okay. Once you have that, that's baseline number one. Then what happens is you have enough for that. You get to a point of comfort, and that's tricky, right? But you get to a point of comfort. The next bit is that I think the trickiest margin, because there's no additional joy. It's a future joy. And that is, okay, now I need to make a little bit more than that because I've got to work a bit harder. And this is what I failed to do throughout my life. I failed to take 20% margin to invest from when I started. My life would be fundamentally different if I did that, right? This is my biggest mistake. So if I could take 20%, make a 20% income boost, beyond that, this is going to take me from comfort to slight discomfort again, because I'm working for something where there's no immediate return. Future me will thank me for it, but for now, no return. Anything beyond that number. Now, first of all, we have to know what those numbers are, right? So you have to have done the maths on your life. If you've not sat there and plotted out the mathematics on your life, this is how much I need to sustain. You know, and there's easy calculations, 40 times wealth or whatever, because you can take out at your 5% every year, you can live off. If you had X in the bank, you'd be able to be okay without ever touching your capital. Now, once you've worked that out, then if you don't have that number, you don't know what you're playing for. It's like entering a sports tournament and not knowing what you need to achieve to win. And most people play life that way. They play their business that way. So the only winning is better than last year. And this is a terrible model, and it creates anxiety and stress, but adds no joy. The other problem is because they haven't set that number, then what happens is they constantly raise the enough life because they buy a car they didn't need to feel better about something, you know, next to other people. And this becomes a massive problem for me. And so I think that the biggest problem is that most people haven't figured out what that line is. Because then it's very easy, Brent, because then you've got to turn around and say, let's say you've got your enough plus your margin, your future enough. Then it's very simple. Someone comes to you and they offer you a lot of money and you think this guy's an asshole. The answer is easy no, because you're going into a pain state when you should be going into a pleasure state. Or this person approaches you and says, Brent, we worked together for years. I loved working with you. I've got this new project. I really need your help on it. I know you don't have much time left, but this is what I want to pay you to do it. You're going to have to work a little bit of nights because I'm in the West Coast of the United States. But you're like, fuck me, this is so exciting. Then you're doing it primarily for the pleasure appeal of working on this amazing project. And then everything else is margin. And that's buy a new motorbike, do those things. But I think if you don't do the maths, you have no idea where you're starting from.
So, Rich, I'm not going to share it on this call, but I've got the spreadsheet of my life, right? Like I know what it costs every month. I know what the number is. I prescribe or subscribe to the 4% rule and the rule of 300. So your income makes 4% after tax on average, whatever it is. You need 300 times your net after tax living expenses in the bank annuity, not your car, not your house, stuff that produces money.
Unpack this for us a bit more, just for everybody.
So let's just say it costs you £100,000 to live a year, okay? Whatever the number is. Pick a nice round number, £100,000. You need £30 million at a 4% net after tax to give you £100,000.
Guys, I've got to leave. I need to work. I need to go pick up some rocks.
Okay, but hang on. But this is the point, right? Is that if 30 million will give you the 100,000 a month net, 100,000 a year net, right? You take 300 times your monthly.
Does that factor in diminishing requirement? Because like we
Yes.
have children and
It
stuff.
factors in 20, you're living in a dorm and you're earning no cash and you have no expenses. At Matt's life and my life in our 40s and 50s, 2 kids in private school, and then 65 downscaling, buying a smaller apartment. Blah, blah. But that's, you can die with never touching your capital. Okay. Which means that, and that's not true for most of us. We're going to eat into our capital as we get older, right? That is the 300 rule is die and leave your capital to your kids. Okay. That's a choice. Now, for me, that number is about 40 million Rand in annuity. So not my house, not my car. So properties I own that's producing income, or stock exchange or cash or something that's giving me a return of 4%. I know in this business, I can't get there. It takes, here's the rule, it takes 17 years if you are saving 50% of your net after tax income to get to your 300. 50% for 17 years at any stage gets you to your 300. Now, I know I can't get there. Okay. I know I'm going to eat capital as I start retiring. Okay. And I'm going to retire later and I'm going to work for as long as I can within reason, keep myself occupied. And I don't want to stop working, right? But I don't want to work under pressure. I want to work to go, can I support 50% of my overhead on a month-to-month basis? And the other 50% will come out of my capital. And I can know that towards the end, I can live to 100 and leave my kids a little bit of money, right? Like they're not going to be trust fund babies. Okay. That's what I'm working towards. So I know my numbers. But the fact is that I've plugged this 300 as I need this kind of cash in the bank or equivalent, cash equivalent. So that's above beyond pressure thing is I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to get there. Like there's not enough hours or price per hour in this current business for me to get there. So it creates pressure for me to continue working. And it's just, I've told myself the story. I've done the numbers. I've chat GPT'd it to make sure it's factual. You can go put this into like the averages based on your lifestyle. I'm never going to get there. Okay. And when most people do that number, they shit themselves because they realize we're never going to get there either. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
they're blissfully ignorant.
Okay. So I've done the numbers, but that creates this other weird pressure on me to go, my grandfather lived into his 102. I'm 50 in 3 weeks. Okay. I have another 50 years. You think about what you've done in your life. You're halfway. Okay.
And you're tired.
How much money do you need to survive everything that I've done in my whole life? I've got to survive for the next period.
Do you not believe that we are on the threshold of some degree, and I don't want to say universal basic income, but a better system that will allow all people to do better? I have to believe that. Like I have
in which country are you living?
What I think the future of government should be.
You forget which country I live in.
So let me go there. Let me run this past you.
Yeah.
This is how I think. My son asked me the other day, how would I, if I could rule the world, how would I do it? Questions only your children will ask you. So I would love the world to be run by an AI. I think it would do an amazing job. I think that imagine government was democracy essentially was real time. So, and based on sentiment analysis. So you never had an election. An election is legicide. The idea that you have to, because it's such a fucking chaos thing. So the biggest problem I think in the world at the moment is that you got like Trump coming in and changing everything. Some of which I agree with, some I don't. That's irrelevant. But then what happens is, let's say somebody else on the left comes back in 4 years from now and then they change things back. So there's a lot of flip-flopping around policy. This in the past, it was so expensive to create an election and to change a government that what we actually needed to do is to run these election period cycles in 4 years in the US and 5 years in South Africa. And what happens if we didn't do that? What happens if government was essentially a function of requirement in real time? So it constantly analyzed sentiment analysis and people were voting in real time based on issues, kind of like the Swiss do, where they get into this area and they vote for one particular issue and then the issue changes in real time. Literally human beings are standing holding like up placards and cards and things to vote for stuff. Now imagine that happened. Imagine you have an AI that's controlling wealth and government and it would look after the elderly. It would be able to do things, but it was more efficient because imagine we could separate And I think this is possible. Imagine we could completely separate government from politics, because government is the governing of human beings, but politics is policy, it's opinion. And I believe that these things have been strung together for too long. And so I believe that there's a meaningful thing that if we had an overarching AI, this job it was to execute on the requirements of humans. Unpopularly, I also think that votes should be divided. So I think Neil deGrasse Tyson should have a bigger vote on, astrophysics related content than he should on other things. And I think that we can have weighted averages, and I think an AI will be able to manage that really, really well. At this stage, I'm saying 25 years from now, I feel it's inconceivable for me when you're 75 that you'll have to worry about wealth in the same way that you'd be worried now. I think that we have to be in this post-poverty. We'll have to be close to that to some degree.
Why would you worry less, though?
You'd worry
in
about
25
different
years?
things, right? So we'll always worry about the same way that even if we didn't have jobs, it would just mean we were doing something else cool, right? People won't lose their jobs. Jobs will lose their people. Like, we'll be off doing other things. And I think that that's what happens. And richness and poverty will be defined on different metrics. So rich won't be about wealth. Rich will be about maybe reputation or something. So we could still be poor in the worldly order, but I don't think we wouldn't have enough to eat. Like, I've got to believe that we're going to have solved for that to some degree.
I don't know.
Interesting thought experiments.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a place that my mind goes to on a regular basis. I'm a lot more immediate, short-term, immediate society. I don't think broadly about these things. So, like, my mind doesn't go there enough to allow myself to float in that space, and I don't consume content that gives me that perspective either. So it's difficult for me to give you an opinion on that. I do think that for me, when you get old, what do you worry about? You worry about your kids, you worry about your health, and you worry about putting food on your table. And I don't know whether AI is going to solve that globally. There might be pockets of that for sure. But what you've taken out of the equation potentially is just the egotistical element of leadership and power, and that has gone on for. You talk about legacy. We're talking about, like, from day dot. There's been that there, and people will always try and own public opinion.
Never had a better alternative.
No, I get that, but I worry that in certain forward-thinking environments that might become true. I think about chunks of Africa. I don't see how in the next 25 years, even at the pace of AI, people are going to relinquish power and allow the machine to take away their authority, their wealth, the way they understand it. I think that there's a dynamic there that globally, I don't see this being solved in such a short period of time.
So for me, and sorry, Matt, if you wanted to jump in there.
No, let's go ahead.
For me, like, government as leadership is like a weird tie-in, right? Because government is actually management, right? Government is a function of mid-level management.
Execution. It's executional.
Yeah. It's executional. And so just like mid-level management will, we got this Doge thing in the States, whatever. Just like efficiency of things, mid-level management is a tier that will certainly be managed by AI. Like, AI will be better at managing things. And I think that if we understand that, then government, you might still have leaders and you might still have groups and you will still have people with power. But I think that we'll separate leadership and power from government. So the governing aspect, we could leave to the computers, and leadership will be about whatever. And again, I always believe it, whatever we transcend to. If we don't have to worry about this, we'll worry about something different, something better. And I think that that's, or not necessarily, it'll be perceived as better to us at the time.
I hope that that's true. Right now, I don't see it. I mean, if I think that if we spoke about it long enough and we went down that path, there's probably some reality to that. But right now, I'm just going, okay, I need to make sure that I can pay for my kids' education for the next 20 years. And like that's a real thing in front of me, right?
So I have a question then. If you guys didn't have to work, let's just say AI was managing government, AI did automate all the manual jobs in the world, and that freed up, more and more time over the next 25 years. And let's just say, there was a liquidity event in your lives or whatever, and you didn't have to work. What would you do?
At work.
But that's what Rich was saying up front, right? I mean, and what I was saying about Christmas, like I hate being idle. But if you
So
didn't have to work concepts
I'd
like
work
university,
differently. I'd
yeah,
probably work very differently. It's interesting to me is that I always there were a few professions that I never understood. I never understood teachers. I never understood nurses. I never understood people in the charity, NGO, NPO space. I could never understand what kind of people those were. But as I've got older, the more I realize that none of those really pay well, okay, like financially pay well. But the reward they would get for doing good work is off the charts compared to anyone else. I don't care how rich you are. If you're doing charity work and there's a real impact and you're looking at the impact in a kid's eyes, nothing pays better than that, right? So I think that if there was a liquidity event where I genuinely didn't have to work, I would still find purpose in work where money wasn't the outcome. There'd be some other kind of impact. And I'm not saying I'd go save little kids in the middle of Africa from what was the 80s famine, like narrative, but I don't know what that would be. But I think I would put myself into the greater good because I could see that would give me a different sense of purpose.
And we
And
know that's what
teaching
happened
would
because that's
probably
what
fit
wealthy
in
people
the
do. They
space.
become philanthropists.
Say that again, Rich.
Well, we know that's what happens. That's what very wealthy once people are post-economic, they tend
Yeah.
to start giving back in a bigger way. And I can even see it. So I run a professional speaking like mentorship program called Story to Stage. And I only, other than creating all the original content and the assignments and maybe looking at some people's assignments, I essentially spend 1 hour per week on a coaching call with these speakers. I'm doing some individual stuff, but basically that week is the highest value. My tank gets more full in that week than any other week, any other function. The only time that's different is if I'm doing speaking that week. Nothing fills my tank more than being on stage. Right? That's my biggest tank filler. But then it is teaching, and then it is selling. Those are the three things. Those are the three things that in my life bring me joy. Two of them are about sharing ideas with humans, and then one of them is selling, which is actually the same thing. And so, I do believe that we would default to that. We would do other stuff. I don't think any of us would be bored. We might just use our time differently.
Not
I would
completely.
definitely get into teaching, but which is ironic because I subscribe to the same perspective as you, Brent, and that's now like there's no way. Do you know what I mean? Like doing any kind of teaching whatsoever. Like it would be, you know what I mean? Like I have zero interest in that. But however, if I shift the whole frame and say, well, if I didn't have to, what would I do? I'd actually go and do that thing.
If someone said to me, Spilly, you could spend 5 to 10 hours a week teaching university students something of value, I think I would jump at that immediately. Okay.
But Brent, you
And
can.
I would,
Why have you not reached out to Gibbs or Cape Graduate School of Business or Henley, John Foster Petty, and
because
said to them,
because
I want to
my
run a
300
course?
number, that doesn't fit the 300 number. Like, that's joy, right? Like it's not about the money there, right? And I do,
Okay.
but my narrative is still chase the number. And Rich, to be clear, I'm 50 on the 1st of March. I've got a plan which gets me to 52. The plan is my spreadsheet, plug the following amount of money away at 52. At 52, this conversation of the threshold of firing clients, I'm actually going to my clients and going, I'm doubling my price because I want you to leave me and I want to find those 10 clients that will pay me that price and I'm going to work 3-4 hours a day. And then, hey Gibbs, don't pay me. I'm coming to work.
Amazing.
Okay. So that's the plan, right? But I'm in that process. But it's hugely frustrating because I am sacrificing for future self. And I feel like I've been sacrificing for 30 years for future self. And like I want future self to be now. I want to start enjoying that, right? And the opposite plan here is that I can slow down this 2-year and make it a 4-year or a 5-year journey and enjoy a bit of the 5 years, a bit more than I am today. So I'll get there maybe later. But I've got a 5-year plan. I've got 2 years left of it. So the answer is yes. That's what I would do. I would love to be lecturing, teaching, and if that gave me a couple of bucks an hour, happiness, right? Like it's not about the money then.
Just the one thing I'd like to say about the number is that there are those calculations, and that is the number. First of all, my parents have said to us, we had a very middle class upbringing. My parents are both successful in their fields, but financially, maybe not as much as they would have liked. Just because, we had a great life. They did everything, but we were like a middle class family. And I've often said to my parents talk about, leaving something for us. And my sisters and I, we all feel the same way. It's like, if you're driving, to death, and you're about to die, and you got 50 rand left in your bank account, pop in and get a Macca's. We don't want anything. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is the realization from my parents is my parents both had regular jobs, good jobs, but regular jobs. They didn't make a complete nest egg. In fact, they would have been doing really, really well, but they started a restaurant that, was a cash sink, and that became a bit of a problem. So they retired with not a huge nest egg, and they have a budget. But here's the thing. My parents get to save up, be reasonable, travel a little bit every single year, like overseas travel, on a pension, and do amazing things and have an amazing life. And sure, they're a bit more stressed. When they travel, they go to shops, buy food, and cook rather than going out to restaurants every day. But actually, now at that age, at 50, I might still want to go to all the fancy restaurants. My parents might want to go to a fancy restaurant, but actually they love sitting, cooking on the patio, making themselves something, and just, sitting, reading their beach on a balcony. And so I feel like we're making a lot of assumptions that future us will have the same requirements as present us. We're also not factoring in that maybe we do have children and other things that can help, that we will have maybe state-run pensions and stuff. Because the truth is, I don't think, if you looked at 90% of our network, of our friends, like growing up from school, I think probably less than 10% of those friends, parents, hit the number. I'm sure there are tiers of people that did, but the people I grew up with there didn't. And they're all fine. They're all like, really, I see them on Facebook. The parents are okay. Are they a bit financially less comfortable than they would have liked? Of course. But it's not like we're failing just because we're not making that 300 number, right?
So, look, I think that it's a bet, because you have no idea that on the way home tonight I get clapped on my bike, and that's that anyway. So the 3 number becomes insignificant in my life. So it's a bet that you make. And it's again, the fact is that, to answer Matt's question, even if I had a big liquidity event today, I would probably take a couple of months off and, travel the Med in summer or something. But I'd come back to work, because it does give me a sense of purpose. I enjoy most of the conversations that I have. I do enjoy the graft. So I would continue to do the work. The plan is not to stop working, because I also know that if you actually stop working and only play golf every day, at 65 you die, because there's nothing to live for, right? I think that it's quite difficult there's value in adding or contributing, teaching, whatever that is, to society. So I don't think I'm going to stop. But for me, it's around speed up in order to slow down. That's kind of my current sort of thinking. And ultimately, I think that the fact is that we have no idea what the future holds for us and how much money we need, and whether AI is going to do what it's going to do, or the promise of those things, or the opposite of that could be true too. So who the hell knows? But all I know is that I don't want to be financially stressed at 75 with no options. I never want to be to the point going, I can't get a job, I'm irrelevant, and now I need money. That for me is a fear. And maybe it's irrational, but it's a fear.
I want to create EO for elders.
Yeah, you said so.
I want to create a wisdom network. I want to create. The idea that we're overvaluing intelligence and undervaluing wisdom, and the idea that when you're 70, you wouldn't have incredible amounts of value to offer to other people is insane to me. I was speaking to a 75-year-old who wants to get into professional speaking, quite a famous South African broadcaster that you may or may not know. Well, you'd both definitely know him. And we were chatting about this. And the big reality is that the one thing you have when you don't know exactly what's coming, but we don't know that there are changes, but you've learned how to survive the changes. And the mindset skill of being able to survive the changes is more important than what the specific changes were. This is why we can still learn from Marcus Aurelius and Cicero and Aristotle, right? Their world was so different to ours, and yet their logic still makes perfect sense. And so if you could choose to sit and speak to them, I'm sure you can with an AI, it's amazing. But if we had a better job of building this wisdom network where we could all add value later, I believe that people, I think it's a very payable skill. And again, this is why professional speaking, I know I fucking bang this drum too much, but being a speaker is such an important skill because it puts you in position as a person who leads with thought. And in the world we're going into, being able to stand in front of a group of humans, being authentically yourself is so important. The both of you will always have work in that field. Both of you can stand up and present the ass off a stage. Brent, I always tell people about that talk you did for university students. Matt, I don't know if you ever heard about it, the talk Brent did for university students.
What was it about?
So I'm gonna set it up. Do you remember the one I'm talking about?
I think so.
The multi-slide project.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brent was asked to come and speak to basically like I want to come in and chat about business to an entire group of students. But he realized
designers and web developers.
Yes, and they were all designers, web developers. It was a creative arts. But he knew intuitively that he wanted to not to be death by PowerPoints, and he knew that he had to keep them engaged. And the way that Brent handled this is a way that only wisdom achieves. Do you want to just take us through it? Because I think it was absolutely magnificent.
Long story short, one of the universities here approached me saying, will I come do a talk to these students around life and business and coming out there, the final year students entering the workplace and like lessons learned. And I'm like, absolutely. P.S. We're not paying you. So then I was like, oh, I've got to go spend hours producing PowerPoints and thinking about, I sort of know what the content is, but like it's a lot of work for free, which I'm never going to repeat to anybody else. So I said to them, cool, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put down, how many students are there? 40. I'm going to put down 40 slides. I'm going to put a couple of keywords, black words on white slides. And each of these students must go design the slide per student, one slide per student in their style. Go design the slide for me. So I produced the talk. I knew what I wanted to do. I sent them the 40 word document pages. They made it part of their curriculum to go and produce a design slide. They then sent me the slide deck, I put it together, and I presented the slide back to them. Now, obviously, what's important is that they were waiting for their slide. So engagement, like, where's my slide? Where's my slide, right? Secondly, every single slide had a very, very unique, it wasn't like, here's the theme. There was no theme, right? Besides my content was the theme. But it was hugely engaging. It worked so well. They did it for 2 or 3 years in a row. I think they did it 3 years in a row. The last year I was doing it in Richard's house online, and he was walking behind the screen going, oh, fuck you, like while I'm doing the talk, Richard style, right? But so I agree with the fact that like it was a smart way of doing it. Maybe there's a little bit of wisdom to that. Like I think about it now, I should probably offer them to do it again because it was actually quite fun. I have 3 amazing...
Every creative studio in the world.
Yeah,
you should go to every creative school in the world and offer them this. Say, this is what I do. This is how I do it. I do it for free, but it just positions you with people in a way and just puts you out there.
So there's no doubt that there's little lessons learned and stuff. And as you say, like you solve problems differently and there's something unique to each. Everybody's wisdom is different because of their experience. So I have no doubt that there's value. Rich, the point being is, I'm going to work until the day I die or can't work any longer, like because I want to. So I'm sure that at 75, I will still be doing something. I just want to make sure that I don't have to. That's the thing. Like it must be, I want to do that kind of talk to every single student into my 80s because it sounds like a fun thing to do. Not because can you scramble some rands together and pay me for it. I don't want to ever be in that position.
Encouraging speakers is what I want to do. It's the thing you would do for free, even though you shouldn't, because you'll show up more when somebody's paying you because you feel that, you have to bring it. Matt, what would that be for you just in closing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say probably the best answer for that one is when I was in South Africa and Digital Kung Fu was doing its thing. I started something called the Dreamers Dojo, and I would go to high school students. I did a lot of speaking at schools, just at schools. And I remember distinctly, I think it was Redham High School or something like that. And there were 1,000 kids there. And I remember giving them a talk, and my first book had come out, Your Inner Game. And I remember how I felt. And I still remember phoning my wife afterwards, and I was like, you know what, that wasn't a talk. That was a spiritual experience. Like, I felt connected to something greater than myself. And I was like, if I could turn off digital kung fu and just do that, I would have been a very happy man, because it was just I could really sense the type of, or the scale of impact that I was having. If you have like rapt attention of kids for an hour, you're doing something right.
Yep.
And the engagement from the kids and all this kind of stuff. And so that's what the Dreamers Dojo was all about, because I was going to offload DK and then just focus on, talking to kids about life, because they have zero perspective. And I think if you are always wealthy in perspective, you can always, generate true wealth. But if you're stuck in your little silo, like this is what life is about, then oftentimes you kind of miss, or, you lack the perspective that you need in order to read the label of the bottle, so to speak.
Well,
Interesting.
We started with Howard and ended with Howard, so that's pretty good.
Where is Howard?
Yeah.
Is he
That's,
here?
I think, a good point to leave people on. And I think it's a worthwhile question, right? The question would be, what would you keep doing if you weren't paid for it? Like, what is that thing that you would like to be spending your time and energy on? And it's important because it's almost for all of us. And maybe I'm curious if there's anybody in the audience in which it isn't to do with teaching or giving back. Because then the question is, are we doing enough work to make sure that we qualify as teachers? Because that's what we have to be, right? We have to fill our tank enough that we have something meaningful to teach. It's not enough that we want to give back. What do we have to give? And maybe that's another part of the wealth pool, the wealth tanks we have to fill, not just financial, but again, that goes back to that relevance thing, that what can we teach? Anyway, boys, I've got to talk in 4 minutes that I've got to prep for.
Yep. Off you go, boys. Great
Okay.
show.
Right.
Chat to
See
you.
you.
All right.
See you soon.